I stood in the shimmering glow of Pineview Country Club, celebrating 41 years of marriage. But what if the love I believed in was a lie? What secrets have I buried all these years? And why is tonight the night they'll finally unravel? Stay tuned as the truth shatters everything. Welcome to Addy Story, where we share real-life stories that touch the heart and inspire the soul. Subscribe now to join our community, relax, and dive into the stories we have for you. Enjoy. For 41 years, love never touched my heart. You were just convenient, the husband whispered to his wife, the weight of years hanging heavy on their ruby anniversary. In that moment, she rose and unleashed the truth she'd buried for so long. Her sister shattered the glass, and silence fell as the guests gasped in disbelief. Before we dive in, share in the comments where you're tuning in from. Immerse yourself in the sound. On that crisp May evening, the Pineview Country Club radiated elegance. The grand hall shimmered, chandeliers casting a warm glow, while the air buzzed with celebration. Elizabeth and William Carter celebrated their 41st wedding anniversary. Ruby red roses graced every table, while the sound of clinking champagne glasses echoed, marking a momentous occasion. Friends, family, and local dignitaries gathered, their laughter echoing the couple's deep, unwavering bond. Elizabeth, radiant in a blue floral dress, her pearl necklace glinting, glided through the crowd, her smile bright but shadowed by an enigmatic sorrow. William, gray-haired and stoic, stood beside her, his charm a practiced mask concealing the tempest within. The evening peaked as the couple stepped onto the stage for their anniversary speech. The room fell silent, every gaze fixed on William as he cleared his throat, his voice slicing through the stillness like ice. 41 years is a lifetime, he started thirstily, eyes scanning the crowd until they locked onto Elizabeth. I've finally understood something profound. Elizabeth, not once in those 41 years did I love you. You were merely a convenience. A collective gasp swept the audience, the words striking like a blow. Elizabeth's smile vanished. Her hands shook around the microphone, her blue eyes filled with disbelief. The room froze, every guest leaning in, breaths caught in their throats. With a deep breath, Elizabeth straightened, her stance proud, even as her voice quivered. Convenient, you think? She responded, her voice sharp and unexpected, revealing a strength she didn't know she had. William, if we're being honest, I have a secret of my own. A reason that reveals why I endured all this time. At the front table, Abigail's sharp cry pierced the air as her champagne glass shattered on the floor. It broke on the gleaming floor, the noise reverberating like a gunshot, capturing every gaze. The guests locked eyes, shock coursing through them. Elizabeth's hands trembled as she stood on the brink of revelation, ready to shatter everything they thought they knew. William's smirk vanished, his hands gripping the podium tightly. What game are you playing, Elizabeth? He hissed, yet she stood firm, her eyes locked on his. I mean it, William. Did you really believe this marriage was just for your convenience? It belonged to me as well, but not for the reasons you imagine. She hesitated, the air thick with anticipation, her eyes shimmering with uncried sorrow. We exchanged vows, but I carried another's child. The room buzzed with whispers. William's face went pale, his lips moving in silent shock. Abigail's hands covered her face, her muffled sobs breaking through the silence. Elizabeth's eyes met her sister's, a desperate plea flickering before she faced the crowd again. Thomas Bennett was my father, a man I loved fiercely. He toiled in my father's factory, and together we dreamed of escape. But he was gone, struck down by a car mere weeks before the wedding. My family made me marry William, all for appearances to give my child a name. William craved a wife, the key to his inheritance. Just a deal, devoid of romance. The guests were paralyzed, unraveling the scandal, their murmurs escalating. Yet Elizabeth had more to reveal. What I didn't know then, she whispered, her voice thick with secrets, was that William had his own motives. In the shadows, he was more than a mere convenience. I became his protector. Tonight, everything will be revealed. William surged ahead, fury etched on his face, but security intervened, restraining him. The crowd was spellbound, drawn into a tangled web of secrets, each moment leaving them breathless, yearning for the next twist. The grand hall of Pineview Country Club felt suffocating as Elizabeth's revelation hung heavy in the air, charged with disbelief and tension. William fought fiercely against the guard's hold, his expression a storm of rage and desperation. "You're a liar!" he roared, his voice breaking as the crowd shifted uneasily, glancing between him and Elizabeth. She stood tall, her pearl necklace shining defiantly, her gaze unwavering amidst the turmoil. Abigail curled in on herself, her quiet sobs weaving through the rising tension. The broken champagne glass at her feet, a haunting reminder of the night's descent. Elizabeth lifted her hand, and the room fell silent, her gesture heavy with decades of unspoken truth. "Am I a liar?" Her voice sliced through William's protests. "Now, share your truth, William. Explain to them why you chose me, why I was your only salvation, so much so that you would wipe Thomas from my existence." Thomas's name sliced through the air, igniting a wave of tension among the crowd, their intrigue electric. William's fight faded, his shoulders drooping as the guards gripped him tighter. His eyes blazed, a storm of defiance and fear. Abigail raised her head, tears glistening on her pale cheeks as she whispered, "Liz, please." Elizabeth glanced at her sister, a fleeting warmth crossing her face. "Abby, the weight is too heavy now. They must know the truth." She turned to the audience once more, her voice firming up. Abigail stood frozen, the night Thomas took his last breath haunting her forever. She witnessed the car that struck him, recognized the driver. It was no accident, dear audience. It was cold-blooded murder. Gasps filled the room. Chairs screeched as some rose. Others gripped their chests in disbelief. William's laugh cut through the silence, bitter and hollow, amplifying the tension in the air. "Do you really believe you can prove that?" he sneered. Elizabeth's smile cut like ice. "I can. Abigail has proof. Photos. A letter where you confessed." She handed it to the police. "They're coming now." The crowd's whispers erupted into a deafening roar, shattering William's bravado as his knees trembled beneath him. Elizabeth pressed on, her voice steady and resolute. Years passed, and the truth weighed heavy, yet I remained silent. I had to save my son, Michael, and Abigail. William's threats silenced us, wielding his power like a weapon. But tonight, we break free. Michael advanced, a towering figure with Thomas's intense blue gaze and Elizabeth's resolute jaw. The room hushed, every gaze fixed on him as he began to speak. "I am the child she bore," the one William called his. Mom protected me, revealing the harsh truth while keeping his cruelty at bay. Tonight, we take back what is ours. The guests were entranced, their hearts racing as the tale veered into the realm of justice. The camera held on Michael's determined face, hinting at deeper truths ahead. Yet the tension remained unresolved. Elizabeth faced William, her voice a haunting whisper. You chose me for convenience, but it was never solely about my family's wealth. You were fleeing from something, weren't you? A debt looms, a scandal brews, a past you believed I'd silence forever. William's silence pierced the air, his eyes frantic, desperate for an escape that had vanished. Sirens wailed, drawing nearer, a harbinger of the police's approach. The crowd held its breath, anticipation crackling in the air as the confrontation loomed closer. Abigail stood, tears streaming down her face, and thrust a small envelope into the hands of the officer who had just arrived. It's all here, she whispered, her voice shaking yet resolute. The evidence, undeniable. The officer approached, and William's eyes flashed with desperation, like a trapped beast ready to strike. Elizabeth grasped Michael's hand, her resolve ignited by the warmth of her son and sister beside her. This goes beyond us, she declared to the audience. Truth will always rise to the surface. William will confront the fallout of his choices. The camera closed in on William's crushed face as he was taken away, whispers of disbelief rippling through the guests. Yet Elizabeth's next words revealed a haunting truth. There's more to this story, she whispered, her eyes shimmering with a blend of pain and victory, a last revelation that alters everything. Her face filled the screen, tension rising, compelling viewers to remain until the final twist of this intense story. The grand hall of Pineview Country Club crackled with disbelief as William was led away by the police, his hands cuffed, his proud stance crumbled into a shadow of defeat. The ruby-red roses on the table felt like a cruel joke, their vivid hue clashing violently with the broken dreams of the night. Elizabeth stood alone on the stage, her blue floral dress shimmering, the pearl necklace a stark contrast to the turmoil around her. Michael stood beside her, a silent pillar of strength. Abigail, trembling from her confession, gripped Elizabeth's arm, desperate for the comfort of their long-shared bond, forged in years of hidden truths. The guests, a blend of old friends, distant relatives, and local dignitaries, sat still, eyes wide, craving the next twist in this unfolding drama. William's protest dwindled as he stepped outside, swallowed by a murmur of whispers, and the sharp clink of a glass dropped in haste. Elizabeth inhaled sharply, her eyes scanning the room, locking onto each face as she prepared to speak once more. I told you there was more, she said, her voice steady, yet the tremor beneath revealed a hidden pain. William's confession, his crime, merely scratches the surface of a deeper truth. I stayed silent for a reason, letting him believe he had triumphed. Michael's grip tightened, a wordless support, and Elizabeth pressed on. Marrying William, I was a young woman, shattered and expecting, with only my family to rely on. William was their answer, a man of honor from a noble lineage, desperate for a wife to claim his birthright. What they never realized, what I only discovered years later, was that William was suffocating under a mountain of debt. Gambling, poor choices, a series of failures, he teetered on the edge of disaster. His desperation for my family's wealth drove him to the unthinkable, murder. A whisper swept through the crowd, eyes darting, as fragments of William's past began to align in a haunting revelation. Elizabeth's voice faded, laced with deep contemplation. Thomas's death transcended mere jealousy. William was aware of my love for Thomas, of our plans to escape together. It was so much more. Thomas unearthed William's debts, his ties to dangerous figures. Thomas faced him, a fierce threat hanging in the air. Expose him. Protect my family. William ended it, chasing him down a deserted street, crafting a facade of an accident. Abigail gasped, her guilt suffocating her. I witnessed it, she breathed, her voice cutting through the silence, reaching the front rows. I walked home from the factory, slipping through the alley's shadows. William's car surged forward. Thomas lunged, desperate to escape. I stood still, paralyzed by uncertainty. When I reached him, the moment had slipped away. William sped away, and I kept silent. Fear gripped me, but then Liz called for me. Pregnant, she felt the weight of vulnerability pressing down on her. I believed silence was my shield for her safety. Elizabeth's hand rested on Abigail's shoulder, a quiet act of absolution. You did what you thought was right, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, before facing the crowd once more. William's scheme reached far beyond Thomas. He wed me, believing he had locked in his destiny. He had no idea my father had shielded our family's fortune, locking it away in a trust William could never access. For 41 years, he believed he had triumphed, that he had outwitted us all, but he was mistaken. The guests leaned in, anticipation crackling in the air. Elizabeth's voice surged with a fierce intensity. The trust was for Michael, my son, my heart. My father saw through William's facade, ensuring our legacy would pass to my child, not my husband. For decades, William schemed, manipulated and threatened, believing I would crumble. But I stood firm. I remained, knowing that one day I would find the courage to reveal the truth and reclaim what belonged to Michael. Michael advanced, his voice steady yet powerful. The truth has haunted me since my teenage years. Mom revealed Thomas's truth, the depths of William's cruelty. This night was our plan, not merely to mark an anniversary, but to close the chapter on a haunting nightmare. Tonight, I seize the trust, and William will pay for what he did to my true father. Applause thundered through the room, a surge of admiration and relief intertwined. Elizabeth lifted a hand, and silence fell. There's one last thing, she murmured, her voice barely audible. A truth William never grasped, a mystery Michael is yet to unravel. It's about Thomas and the promise I made him before he left this world. The camera closed in on her face, eyes shimmering with unfallen tears. The tension escalates, leading to a devastating truth that will shatter everything. The grand hall of Pineview Country Club pulsed with a tense silence, the air thick with the weight of Elizabeth's revelations. The chandeliers flickered, casting a haunting glow over the few guests left behind. A blend of awe, sympathy, and anticipation etched on their faces. William was gone, the clink of his handcuffs echoing into the darkness, leaving a chasm that Elizabeth filled with her fierce authority. Michael stood beside her, his jaw clenched, resolve radiating from him. Abigail gripped her sister's arm, tears carving paths down her cheeks, a raw reflection of the night's anguish. The ruby-red roses on the tables drooped, their once vibrant color a haunting reminder of a marriage steeped in deception. Elizabeth's last words lingered, a haunting promise that captivated all who listened. Her fingers trembled as she pulled a weathered envelope from her small clutch, its edges yellowed, a relic of the past. This, she declared, raising it high for everyone to witness, is the final piece of our tale. A letter from Thomas, penned on the eve of his last breath. He entrusted it to me, urging that I safeguard it, to unveil it only when I needed the courage to stand tall. The crowd leaned in, breaths caught as she broke the seal, hands steady, time stretching with each heartbeat. With trembling hands, she opened the letter, her voice barely a whisper as the words spilled out. Elizabeth, if you find this, I am no longer here, and you are left to confront a shadow I failed to shield you from. I loved you fiercely, and our son will embody my spirit. But there's so much more to say. I uncovered a secret about William, one that could shatter his world. He's not merely in debt. He's ensnared by a criminal syndicate, washing money through my factory. I faced him, and I dread what lengths he might go to keep me quiet. If he does, seize this insight. A ledger lies concealed in the factory's forgotten storage room, tucked behind the third panel on the left wall. It reveals all. Fight for our son, Liz. Fight for us. Whispers filled the room, each revelation thickening the air with danger and intrigue, turning an already explosive night into something unforgettable. Elizabeth's gaze fell from the letter, locking onto Michael's intense stare. That ledger, she whispered, holds the truth. William murdered Thomas. He married me to bind me, to ensure I never discovered the truth. Years ago, after my father's death, I returned to the factory and discovered it. I concealed it, biding my time for the perfect instant. The moment is here, tonight. She signaled to an officer by the stage, and he approached, clutching a heavy, leather-bound ledger. Michael grasped it from the officer, his hands unwavering as he unfolded it, exposing pages filled with precise records, dates, sums, and names of elusive figures linked to William's transactions. This goes beyond my father's murder, Michael declared, his voice sharp and commanding. It's about dismantling the empire William created. The police will tear it apart, ensuring no one else endures our pain. The crowd erupted, a wave of relief and admiration crashing through the air. But Elizabeth had more to say. One last thing, she whispered, her voice trembling. Thomas added a haunting postscript. He urged me to embrace love if it ever came my way, wanting nothing more than my happiness. For 41 years, I believed it was about staying with William, shielding our son. Now I realize it's about release. Michael, you are my strength. Abigail, you are my heart. United, we soar. She held them tightly, tears streaming down her face. The guests stood, their applause crashing like a storm of approval. The camera swept over the ledger, lingered on the void where William once stood, then focused on Elizabeth, Michael, and Abigail, united as they exited the hall, arms entwined. Darkness enveloped the screen, words emerging from the void, justice delivered, love remains, a legacy reborn. As the credits rolled, a phone rang softly, teasing a continuation, leaving viewers on edge, eager for what lay ahead. The night air chilled, stars swallowed by the harsh glow of police lights. Elizabeth halted, her gaze fixed on the ledger clutched by Michael. We did it, she breathed. For Thomas. Abigail nodded, tears falling. And for us. Michael smiled, a fleeting spark of hope illuminating his face for what lay ahead. The camera held their silhouettes against the club's facade, the story wrapping up with a bittersweet finality, yet leaving a sliver of possibility, a tantalizing tease to captivate the audience. Thanks for watching this story on Addy Story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a new tale. Stay tuned for more, and until next time, take care and keep living your own amazing stories.